Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Alex Graziano. I'm the Vice President of the Verona Chamber of Commerce, as well as a Verona resident and Verona business owner. On behalf of the Chamber and our co-sponsor, the Verona-Cedar Grove Times, I would like to welcome you to this year's Candidates Forum. Seated to my right is my co-host, Lillian Ortiz, the editor of the Verona-Cedar Grove Times. I'm pleased to inform you that this is the 14th forum which the Chamber has done and the 10th in which the Chamber has partnered with the Verona-Cedar Grove Times. We have many persons and organizations to thank for making tonight possible, so we would like to do our thank yous at the end of the program tonight. Before introducing the candidates, I'd just like to add one public service announcement. If you would, please turn off your cell phones. I would now like to introduce the candidates in the order in which they will appear on the ballot. Mr. Jay Snitkowski, Mr. Rich Williamson, Mr. Kevin Ryan, Mr. Alex Roman, Mr. Bob Manley, Mr. Al DeOld, and Ms. Tina Schwartz. As in past years, we'll use the following format. Each candidate will have a 2-minute opening statement. There will be a total of 5 questions asked. Each candidate will be given 1 minute, 30 seconds to respond to each of the 5 questions. After all 5 questions have been answered, each candidate will be permitted a 1 minute, 30-second closing statement. Each candidate will receive a 15-second warning prior to the expiration of the allotted time. So may we have the order of questions, the order of opening statements, and the order of closing statements were selected immediately prior to taping by citizens Camillus Matthews and Jeff Summers. So thank you, Mr. Matthews and Mr. Summers, for helping us to choose the random order of statements and questions. After the first candidate has answered, we'll proceed with the person to the left of the candidate who just answered. Since we have 7 candidates, the moderators may choose to repeat the question from time to time, and I would just ask the candidates, if you would like the moderator to repeat the question, please just ask us to do so, and we will. And finally, one more housekeeping note before we get started. Towards the end of the program, we're going to need to change the tape if we run near 90 minutes. So, candidates, we may have to, if I get a signal from Mr. Thomas, who is taping us, I may have to ask you to stop while we change the tape. We will begin with the opening statements, and based on our random drawing, Mr. Manley is the first to give his statement.
Okay. Thank you, Alex. I'd first like to thank the Verona Chamber of Commerce and the Verona-Cedar Grove Times for hosting this event, and you for moderating, and Lillian, of course. I'd like to thank everybody in the audience for coming out and giving us your time and your interest, and those watching at home tomorrow or Wednesday on VTV, and my fellow candidates sharing this table with me. My name is Bob Manley, and I am currently a councilman in Verona, and I presently serve as your deputy mayor as well. My wife Nancy and I moved to Verona a little over 21 years ago with our 2 then small children, Sarah and Tyler. And we've enjoyed a wonderful life here. The very best decision that Nancy and I ever made was to raise our children in Verona. Now, my background is in education. I've been a science teacher for 25 years and a high school coach of 4 different sports for that time. Wow, that was quick. I hold a master's degree in educational administration and supervision, and I've been called upon to perform many leadership roles in that capacity. I ran for election in 2009, and I've been proudly serving on the council since that time. I feel truly privileged to be a part of this governing body, and I know that I have served you with honesty and integrity throughout my tenure. I believe that I possess and I have exhibited all of the requisite qualities of an effective, committed, and competent representative of the townspeople of Verona. And I sit here tonight asking for your further support. Thank you very much.
And now we'll hear from Mr. DeOld.
Good evening. My name is this on? Is it working? Okay. My name is Al DeOld, and I have would like to thank the Chamber for sponsoring this evening, along with the Cedar Grove Times, and especially all of you folks who've taken your time to come out. I have moved to Verona some 40 years ago. When my wife and I came, we have brought our 3 children who went through the school system here. Just absolutely love Verona. Some of you may know me from a different role. I was a high school teacher at Verona High School, teaching industrial arts for some 17 years. And unfortunately, the student population took a dip, and I was a victim of what they call a RIF, reduction in force. That doesn't mean I don't care about Verona. I still love Verona. I still love to be here, and I have reached the point now where I would like to continue to serve Verona. People ask me, well, why are you doing this? Why do you want to get into, this arena? And I will hold up a paper. It's a little old. It's January 8th, 2012, and it talks about Essex County property taxes and Verona's property taxes. In the last 5 years, 31% raise on average in the town of Verona, and I'm very concerned about that, especially when I meet people, and now I'm out walking, talking to people, where they feel they have to move out of town because their taxes are too high. I hope that I can get on to the council and be very responsible to control spending and to work for the citizens of Verona. Thank you.
Ms. Schwartz is next.
Thank you. I'm Tina Schwartz. I'd like to also thank the Verona Chamber of Commerce and the Verona-Cedar Grove Times for affording all of us this opportunity to introduce ourselves to you. My husband Larry and I, and our then 1-year-old son Noah, moved to Verona almost 34 years ago. We've since raised 4 children here and still love living in this caring, creative, and lively community. I've been involved as a volunteer and elected official for more than 25 years. When my children were small, I was active in the SCA, involved in Save the Mountains effort to preserve the hilltop. I led a petition drive that asked the state to put the hilltop aside for open space. I acquired well more than 10,000 signatures, leading to the creation of the Hilltop Reservation. I was the founding president of the Verona Park Conservancy and chair of the Verona Environmental Commission. I served 2 terms on the Verona Town Council. In my 2nd term, I served as mayor during a very difficult time for many Verona residents. The economy had collapsed, and at the same time, we were going through a town-wide reevaluation, the perfect storm. I'm proud to say that I listened to those who had concerns about the reval process and budget procedures, as well as considering the manager's report while I formulated my own decisions. During my term as mayor, the town completed its new master plan and rewrote zoning, making sure that Verona kept its small-town atmosphere and great quality of life. I sat as the council member of the planning board during that process, and when I was mayor, I went to planning board meetings myself. I did not point a surrogate. During my terms on the council, I was on the committee that studied the advantages of changing from a director of public safety to appointing a police chief, and I served on the committee that provided a plan for improving the Central Business District. I'm enthusiastic, I'm energetic, and I'm dedicated to serving all the residents of Verona. Thank you.
And now we'll hear from Mr. Snitkowski.
Thank you. It was 12 years ago that I first appeared here as a candidate whose intent was changing a poorly thought-out hilltop redevelopment plan that would have negatively impacted our town forever. And 6 years later, as your mayor, much of that land became part of a beautiful county park system and Centennial Field, which was completed without the use of tax dollars. It was also the single greatest revenue producer this town has seen, about $1 million per year in revenue that will go towards tax relief, helping our schools, and paying down the cost of our proposed new fields if they are passed. As mayor, despite lawsuits and the threats of bulldozers, I stood with local residents to fight Kipps Castle redevelopment plan, and now it's another beautiful county park. As your councilman, my record shows I respond to needs to all our residents and not a select few. I believe in open and accessible government, holding quality discussions with an open exchange of ideas to improve our community. I fought to reinstate the police chief's position and created our revenue-producing solar program. We've increased shared service and improved our roads in downtown, much of it done with grant dollars, expanded our water system that brings in revenue and has stabilized rates for the past 12 years, to the point we have not seen any increase during that time. Financially, we're in good shape because we're prepared for the future and possible bumps in the road. We have a top bond rating for municipalities, a low bond debt ratio, and my goal is a flat municipal tax levy for the 3rd straight year. Recently, listening to the concerns of families, I ended a long, drawn-out discussion, and we are now switching to organic fertilizer on our fields. Just this past November, I saved $400,000 in sewer bonds by pointing out that we can use old projects, the funds off old projects. I believe council members need to have ideas and to be creative. They need to treat volunteers, employees, and residents with respect. They also need to be accountable. And for 12 years, I have been an independent voice that stands up and is not afraid to make a decision. I'm not someone that buckles under signs of pressure. I don't expect everyone to agree with me, but please trust that I always put the interests of this great community first. Thank you.
Now we'll hear from Mr. Williamson.
Good evening, fellow residents of Verona. My name is Rich Williamson, and I am a candidate for Verona Town Council. At this time, I would like to thank the Verona Chamber of Commerce and the Verona-Cedar Grove Times for hosting tonight's event. Thank you to Alex and Lillian for moderating, and my fellow candidates for joining us here tonight. I have been a resident of Verona since 1991. I have 2 children, Betsy and Richie, who both graduated from the Verona school system. I have been a member of the Verona Environmental Commission, the Budget Review Committee, and the Verona Centennial Committee. I've been active with the Verona Band Parents for the last 8 years and the VBSL for the last 10 as a board member and coach. I have been a record safety course instructor for the last 4 years and have trained hundreds of youth coaches in Verona. I have worked in the construction industry for over 30 years. During this time, I have been in charge of budgeting, manpower assessments, purchasing, billing, estimating, and property management. As the general manager of a small business, I am familiar with the increasing costs of health benefits and the effects it has on not only employers but the employees. I understand the positive role that technology can play on productivity. Having worked with many people, numerous organizations over the last 22 years, I believe I have a feel for what Verona values. In order for a town to grow and succeed, residents need to continue to come together and work towards a common vision. I will be one of the leaders to keep Verona's values, achieving nothing but the best while remaining fiscally responsible. Thank you.
And now Mr. Ryan.
Thank you, Alex. My name is Kevin Ryan, and I want to thank the Times and the Chamber for giving me the opportunity and the other candidates to speak to you. I'm running for re-election to the council after having been successful in winning a special election only 2 years ago, which makes me somewhat unique on the podium. When it became time to make a decision on running for a full 4-year term, I went back and reviewed my campaign promises to the voters. I needed to determine if I'd at least made a good faith effort to fulfill them. At the time, I committed to try to hold the line on spending and reduce costs, to seek greater transparency and more open government. I also promised to devote time and energy to my council responsibilities. In reviewing my performance, I believe I've lived up to my promises. I voted no on the last 2 municipal budgets because I felt that more effort should have been made to cut discretionary costs. Keeping them flat was not a solution to our property tax increases. Cuts were needed to offset the increases in rising salaries, health benefits, pension contributions, and debt services. The town has experienced a severe decline in ratables over the last 2 years, which also directly impacts that. In the area of transparency and open government, I was an early advocate for the televising of budget workshops. My philosophy is any meeting open to the general public should be recorded and broadcast. I strongly support the prompt release of public information requested by any citizen. I am pleased to see that we now have some budget information online. I would like this to apply to town contracts as well. The overall economic environment is still tough. Unemployment in New Jersey is high and wages are flat. Going forward, much work needs to be done to address the need to keep Verona affordable for working-class families and seniors. Our labor contracts are expiring at the end of the year for both the police and municipal employees. They have received salary increases of 3.25% and 3% over the last 2 years. Only a handful of them have started to pay for their health insurance premiums. Starting next year, that will be somewhat rectified. While I strongly value the service they provide, changes need to be made. We will need individuals on the council that are keenly aware of the economic challenges and will direct the manager to negotiate a contract that is fair and reasonable to all residents. The council will still need to look for additional cost cuts and potential revenue sources. I believe my action over the last 2 years has shown that I will continue to be a strong, independent voice on the council to meet this need. Thank you.
And finally, Mr. Roman.
Thank you. Good evening. I'd like to thank the Verona Chamber of Commerce and the Verona-Cedar Grove Times for sponsoring tonight's debate. I'd also like to thank my fellow candidates for the opportunity to discuss important issues with them, and of course all of my fellow citizens of Verona for their involvement in this important election. I'm running for a seat on the council to solve a problem. I firmly believe that the era of high property taxes in New Jersey needs to end now. There's no greater factor that's choking the state's economy and hurting its citizens than this. Property taxes are a statewide problem that will only be solved locally. There isn't help coming from Trenton. There's not a brilliant financial maneuver that we can all make right now to solve this. We have to look at every unit of government to look at our costs and make choices and look ahead for the future to solve the issue. Here in Verona, we've been hit with property tax hikes that are a little harder than some other folks have experienced, 31% as was said earlier. And I say that the problem is that across the board, our expenses are too high. We pay out hundreds of thousands of dollars in overtime and administrative costs. Our debt service costs are increasing faster than anything other than health care. And there's no revenue solution to this problem. Every non-tax dollar that comes into the town goes to increase costs immediately. We don't really see any property tax relief. I'd like the opportunity to address this problem, and I believe I have the experience necessary to push back at high costs. I deal with budgets every day. I'm responsible for managing costs and operating an organization efficiently. I supervise major capital construction projects, and I know how to build things that we can afford. And I've been paying attention to the Verona budget for years. I know that budget in detail. I look at every line item every year and figure out where our costs are and where we should be saving money. I work every time that I can to find suggestions that we can reasonably make cuts that will not affect services to the community. If I'm elected, I promise I'll work as hard as I possibly can to make Verona an affordable and sustainable town for the benefit of all of my fellow citizens and try and keep the services that we have. I look forward to our discussion tonight, and I hope to win your support. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates, for your excellent opening statements. Now, for the first question, I'd like to turn it over to my co-host, Lillian.
Thank you, Alex. The first question goes to Mr. Diola. For years, Verona officials have discussed constructing recreational fields and amenities in the Hilltop Reservation. Where do you stand on the proposed $5 million project and the possible... You can't hear it? Hello? Can you hear me now?
Help is on the way.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Okay.
Okay, I'll repeat the question. For years, Verona officials have discussed constructing recreational fields and amenities in the Hilltop Reservation. Where do you stand on the proposed $5 million project and the possible $1 million amphitheater that may join it?
Nice question. I'll tell you, I am very pro-kid. I was a teacher. I love to see kids being involved in all sorts of sports and activities. But one of the things that concerns me the most is when I drive by here at 10:30 at night and see our children out on the field playing on a school night or practicing. Do we need more fields? In my opinion, yes, we do. I think we definitely have to go ahead with the fields. One of the things that I would question, however, is they have a Kinsey report that's out, and it shows this $5 million. I had done some checking online for the various costs of things such as the artificial turf that they wish to put in, and some of the other things, the benches and flow control valves, backflow control valves. And as I was checking online, I found that at least the figures in the report did not jive with what I found online. Now, I am at somewhat of a disadvantage. I don't know all the specs because the report was very general on those. But I would suspect that there's a lot of extra money put into this, and I would be concerned about bonding out $5 million. According to the figures that I checked, I think we could do it for probably $3.5, $3.75, at the tops, $4 million, and still come up with beautiful fields for our children to play on. Thank you.
Ms. Schwartz?
Yes, thank you. These fields, which is actually Phase 2 of the Hilltop Plan, were planned for several years. And it's interesting that they're first coming to fruition now. We didn't know the cost back then, but we did know that pilot money was going to be set aside to pay for building the fields. I don't have a strong opinion on whether it's financially feasible right now because I don't know what the projected assets of the pilot money is going to be. And I'd like to see us retire some bond debt as well. I'd like to see the schedule of the bond debt and what bonds we're retiring in the future. It's obvious that we need the athletic fields. And the question is do we do it now when interest rates are low, or do we wait till taxes are lower, or wait for the economy to turn around, but then interest rates might be higher? So it is a conundrum. As far as the amphitheater goes, it's no question, we can't afford it. Not only can't afford it, but the proposed site for the amphitheater is on open space property that's been set aside for walking trails and passive recreation. Thank you.
Mr. Snikowski?
Thank you. First of all, I don't support the amphitheater. I never have, and I just I don't want it to get in the way with the the fields. Originally, I had campaigned on increased recreational opportunities back in 2001. And for the last 10 years, I've been very much involved in working on the build-out of the fields. Like you said, back in 2007, we were able to put fields up without the use of tax dollars. This time around, we're not as lucky. We've turned a big piece of land into a beautiful asset for Verona. The field master plan that was created back in 2005, I believe, had the input of the Board of Education, a lot of residents, a lot of time was put into it, and a lot of effort. And now here you are in 2013, and those fields are needed more than ever. Having your child, a third or fourth grader, out there at 10:30 at night is ludicrous, especially when we have that land there, and we've had the plans in place for many years. As far as paying for it, we do have $1 million coming off the revenue from the hilltop. We're estimating about $350. Hopefully, we go towards tax relief, as it currently is doing. Another $350 would go towards paying down a debt, which will go for about 20 years. The fields are sorely needed. They're overcrowded, and I support the fields. We have the funding, and one thing I would like to see is create a little revenue in the wintertime. If we can, say, put a bubble, fix it for one of the bubbles, so we could draw a little revenue off them at one point. Thank you.
Mr. Williamson?
I, too, support these fields 100%, and I think the amphitheater, why it would be a nice addition at this time. It's definitely not something that we should look into. This discussion on the fields, it brings you back 20 years ago when they were looking to build this building for $3.5 million. And they said, oh, it's going to be a white elephant, nobody will ever go there. Well, I can tell you this building is in use all the time. You can't, it's tough to schedule meetings, it's tough to get in gyms. I schedule the fields for baseball and softball, and I can tell you, we are arguing with lacrosse and soccer and football. The pie is gone, and everybody's constantly got their fork out looking for another piece. So I can tell you these fields are needed now. This is a golden opportunity to use pilot money, not tax dollars, and the value to this town is going to be hard to measure, but I can tell you, talking to other people, they hear these fields are going to be built. And I can tell you this, a lot of people want to move to Verona because of that, because of Centennial, because of this building, and these fields. These are needed now. Thank you.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to basically follow up on something that Mr. Diol said, and that's basically that, I'm a little bit puzzled as to the cost estimates on this. Back in October, when this issue came up again, a figure of $4 million was thrown around. All of a sudden, from October to March, we went up to $5 million. Let me tell you something here. A $5 million bond will eventually cost the town $6,412,000 over the 20-year period. Bond debt is already 17% of the levy, the amount of taxes that we pay, and it's probably about 10 to 11% of the overall budget. The other myth that I like to clear up is this idea that pilot money is not tax dollars. You have expenses and you have revenues. The pilot money is a revenue source. If you decrease a revenue source, you have to raise taxes to make up for the loss of revenue. So the pilot money can be used to just provide tax relief to the citizens of Verona. I'm also puzzled as to why we're pushing this ahead all of a sudden to be voted on. We haven't even finalized the budget for this year yet. We have other capital improvements that we have to consider. So I think all of a sudden we're rushing to a judgment on this when we don't have all of the facts. We keep hearing that we're going to get $1 million. I've asked the town manager repeatedly for a schedule of when the pilot money is going to come in. I still don't have it. I can't support this project economically based upon the information that we've gotten. In terms of the need for the field, I think there is a need for the fields. I'd like to see a little more shaving of the cost estimates down, and I want to see where the town is fiscally before we vote on approving them. I don't think we should even, we can even consider putting them up for a vote, for a referendum for this amount of money. I think it's something we should consider.
Mr. Roman?
I'm also concerned about the costs here. As I said in my opening statement, one of our fastest growing expenses right now is debt service. We have to look at the capital budget as part of our process here and the overall capital budget as a whole. The only thing that's growing faster year over year is the cost of health care. I do believe we need recreational facilities, and one of the roles of government is to build the things that we want and need as a community. But we have to look a long time out here and see what this is going to do to our overall financial condition. I'd also like to reiterate what was said earlier about the pilot dollars. Those are a general revenue to the township. This is a general capital expenditure like anything else. The two items are separate matters. The fact that we have the pilot dollars and the fact that we're building the fields are on separate sides of the ledger. Those pilot dollars could be serving for tax relief, or if we were in a much better financial situation economically, the fields could just be something we did even if we didn't have the pilot dollars. I'd like to see us look at these cost estimates a little bit better as well. We started out at $4 million, now we're at $5 million. That should go through a process of what's called value engineering, which is when you have a actual construction estimate for a project that comes in over what you budgeted for it. You have to go back and look at the project and figure out what you can and can't afford to build in it. I'm actually doing a major remodeling project at my office right now. So one of the things we had to go through was to figure out what we could actually afford to build when the estimates came in. And I can't see us just jumping from $4 million to $5 million in literally 1 week was how fast that budget estimate went up. And I'd like to look at this overall effect on our bond repayment schedule and debt service.
Mr. Manley?
Thank you. I've made no secret of the fact that I am very much in favor of these fields. When my kids first moved here and we first moved here and I started coaching, the fields that were in use then for the 5 different sports that we coached were taxed way beyond their capabilities at that time, and the boom that the athletic programs have experienced over the past 10 years has just made it impossible to get field space anymore. As far as the cost of it, I agree. I'm concerned about the jump from $4 million to $5 million, but I think that $4 million was an estimate. And now that we have a more hard number on it, I think it's a little easier to get our heads around. But the original intent of that whole pilot agreement was to upgrade that area. And as far as I can tell from my calculations, that when the Senrose properties are fully occupied, the town will be getting very close to $1 million a year for 30 years. Now, of that $1 million, it looks like about 120 to 130 is still going to go to the Board of Education. About 70 to 80 of it will go to the county. Now, had this pilot deal not been struck, we would only have been receiving ad valorem tax on that property, where the town would have only gotten around $250,000 a year. But in this particular scenario, we're getting well over $750,000. We can pay that bond debt and still have close to $500,000, possibly more than that, that we could use for tax relief, or we could use for other long-term projects and pay down some of the bond debt. I think this is an idea whose time, certainly more than anything I've seen on the council in 4 years, whose time has come, and it's finally time that we move on it. Thank you.
We'll now proceed to question number 2. And the question is, it is the position of the Chamber of Commerce that a strong partnership between the township and the Chamber is beneficial to business. If elected, what would you do to strengthen that partnership? And we'll begin with Ms. Schwartz.
Okay, I have a lot on this. Actually, the business community is one of my little pet projects. What we have done, we'll start with what we have done, and I'll go through this quickly. We've changed zoning that allows for outdoor seating in restaurants, and we've established a fast track for businesses coming in on the planning board for approvals. We've allowed for sidewalk signs in our new zoning ordinances. We have a new streetscape. I was part of that committee that recommended it, that makes the town welcoming and well cared for and attractive to new businesses. We need to have more events like we have like Fair in the Square and the summer concert and get people down into the downtown. We need to work with the county to showcase the park entrance closer to Cumberland so that people can cross safely from Verona Park into the business district. And we need to have a comprehensive Shop Verona campaign. Maybe walking tours of the businesses. And we need a comprehensive listing with the Chamber of Commerce, hopefully online, by category of businesses, that we can keep current, that people can know where they can go. They can get practically everything in Verona. Hopefully in another question I can finish this. Thank you.
Mr. Snitkowski.
Thank you. As you mentioned, the relationship between the Chamber and the Council can certainly be better. Back in 2006 and 2007, when I had served as mayor, the Chamber at that point was very active, had a lot of good ideas, and we had met on numerous occasions to see what they wanted, how we can improve the downtown. One of the concerns was parking, and we did change some of the parking situations in town to make it easier for residents to come to town and park and go to eat and things like that. We changed a lot of the regulations for restaurants. We did away with the seating requirements. We allowed for outdoor seating. We made it. We tried to, as a council, we tried to make the town more restaurant and business friendly, and I think that, and you can't blame me for that. You know, I think as a council, we did pretty much everything we could do to fix up the aesthetics of downtown. I think the one thing that we need is the residents to realize, and as Councilwoman Schwartz and Mayor Schwartz had stated, we need to have a directory where residents can be better informed of what the township of Verona has to offer in our downtown. One thing I like to see is also that we've tried to improve the parking situation. I think one of the criticisms of our downtown is that there is no parking, and I think we tend to live in a strip mall society these days, and people don't think that parking is there, but it is actually there. Is that my time? Thanks.
Mr. Williamson?
I would agree that parking is always a big issue. When you're trying to park a truck on Bloomfield Avenue like I do at times, it's not all that simple. The parking lots have gotten better. I would like to see us get the residents, the business owners, and the township officials together on a regular basis so they could share ideas on what the residents want to see from the existing businesses, what they want to see as new businesses come in, and how the business owners can change to fit what the residents want, what the town officials can do for the businesses, for the residents. Everybody's got to talk together. To have the town talk to just the business owners and everybody separately, we've got to bring everybody together. And that'll really, I think, bring everything out. Thank you.
Mr. Ryan?
Thank you. Just to follow up on what Jay and Tina said, I think the town has done a lot and for the businesses in terms of the streetscape project. Sidewalks have all been done, the lights have been put up. The best thing we can do going forward, I think, is to meet with the Chamber. I know the Chamber has gone through a lot of changes over the last couple of years. Hopefully the Chamber will be in a period of stability. And we could have regular meetings. What I would suggest is having a subcommittee meeting with the council liaison to the Chamber and a rotating member meeting with the business community. I'm really concerned about the vacant space on Bloomfield Avenue. I think the town should be doing more to try to encourage the property owners there to develop the space. Hopefully the economic environment will improve, and we should be asking them if there's any additional zoning changes that maybe we could do, ordinances that we could pass. If there's anything on the books right now that's inhibiting development, we want to know about it. You know, we really need to keep the lines of communication open. We shouldn't be arguing about putting bags on parking meters every season. We really need to get down to the nitty-gritty of stabilizing the economy in the town and making it attractive for businesses and the residents. Thank you.
Mr. Roman.
Thank you. I think we are actually on a reasonably good road with downtown development and business development. You look at the amount of capital that's been put into downtown, improving the streetscape, the lighting. We've done a lot of things there. I would like to see us look at our permitting process. There's been a lot of discussion about making sure that there's sort of one-stop shopping for someone who wants to open a new business in town, that they have all the answers they need and all the permits they might need to build something or open something, that we make sure that process goes as smoothly as possible. Again, look at some of the vacant spaces and especially some of the vacant lots. There's some discussion of a couple of lots downtown where there's some difficulty building there because of parking restrictions on those lots. That's an area where we probably should look at it because it's right in the middle of our downtown. I support our events program. I think there's a very, very high return on investment for that, for us to develop and promote events and bands and concerts and things like that in the downtown area. It's a great way to bring people out there and to improve the quality of service for the businesses. And again, we can partner with the county on a lot of events in Verona Park and try and promote Verona Park as a destination as well. It's beautiful. It's a great asset to the town. We should use it for everything we can. Thank you.
Mr. Manley?
Thank you. I agree with pretty much everything that's been said here. I presently serve as the council liaison to the Chamber of Commerce, and I've had very productive meetings with former President Stephen Amadeo and President Michael Serino now, and Vice President Alex here. I think we are very much on the right path. We've spent millions of dollars on the improvement of the streetscape and the pedestrian lamps, and most of that with grant dollars. I think it's no question that a vibrant and thriving business district is the lifeblood of any community, and we need to continue to try and draw new businesses in. We have relaxed some of the regulations as far as outdoor seating, sidewalk sales, and sidewalk signs. I know a few months ago I met with our town engineer, Jim Helb, our town code enforcer, Tommy Jacobson, and then former President Stephen Amadeo, to come up with I think it was mentioned already, a startup kit basically for new businesses desiring to come into town, or possibly businesses that exist and want to expand, a one-stop shopping list basically of what regulations you need to be aware of, what contacts you need to make in town to make it as easy as possible for new businesses to come in and as attractive as possible. I was very much supportive of an initiative that came around last year, but there wasn't time enough to get it together, a Fall for Verona Day, where a day in October or September, vendors could come to the town square and set up a table and exhibit to the townspeople what they offer. I'm hopeful that with discussions with the Chamber of Commerce that we could see something like very similar to Fair in the Square, but a nice family event day for the Chamber. Thank you.
And now Mr. Diold.
Love being last and all the good ideas, but I do have some things I'd like to say. First of all, I think you need to keep the communication open, and what I have seen in the last few years, and like I said, I was involved with the school. At one time, the school board and the town were at two different places. Today, they work together, and I think that this is where the council and the chamber has to really do. Keep the lines of communication open and be open to new ideas. I'm going to tell you about an idea. My daughter used to live in California. This may or may not work here, but I think we have to try some different things. I know they talked about putting bags on meters. I want to see a permanent bag on those meters. And it says 1 hour free parking, strictly enforced. Anybody who knows our society knows we are an automobile society. We depend on our cars for everything. And if we want to have people in and out of town, in and out of those spaces, I know Mr. Martin says it's not the quarter that goes into the meter that's that important. It's the changeover. And I think we could encourage shopping in Verona with a local, shop local campaign. And if we did that with those meters where people could just pull up, do their shopping at the various stores, I don't know anybody who would really need more than an hour. And if so, they could always go maybe to a back lot, what's not on Bloomfield Ave, and then pay, if you wanted to do that in the back. But encourage people to shop local. Thank you.
For the third question, we'll start off with Mr. Williamson. When speaking to the Verona-Cedar Grove Times, some council candidates mentioned a desire for increased transparency in the local government. Cite a recent situation where you felt the current council could have been more transparent, and tell us how you would have handled this situation differently.
Well, I think the word transparency is overused and misused. I think what we have is a disconnect in information sharing. there's nobody on any side of anything hiding anything. What we have is like Cool Hand Luke said, what we have is a failure to communicate. We need to stop arguing over who gets what when. Everybody's got to figure out a way to come together and say, look, we're all on the same ideas. We all got the same thoughts here. Let's just stop, accusing people of what we're doing and open discussion, and that'll end all this thoughts on transparency. Thank you.
Excuse me.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes, thank you. Well, the area of transparency, I think I cited it in my opening remarks in open government, and that was just the discussion that we had over televising the budget workshops. To me, it was apparent that it shouldn't have been an issue at all. I would also like to advocate for more transparency, I guess, in government, just in terms of filling contracted positions. I think basically that we should be going out with solicitations for any contract for professional services that we have coming up, and by that I mean things like town attorney for the various boards. We need to announce those things. We need to get solicitations so that people realize that there is an open and competitive process. We have had situations where I know of where people have asked for public information, what I consider public information, and they have been delayed and stonewalled and told that they couldn't have it, and they were asked why they needed it as opposed to whether they could get it. So I do take exception to the last comments. I think we do need better communication amongst the citizens and the council moving forward. Thank you.
Mr. Roman?
Certainly. A number of years ago when I first started getting involved in Verona town government, one of the things that I was trying to do was to actually get a copy of the budget. And I asked for the state form of the budget, and I filed an Oprah request, and it was filled by our attorneys, and they included basically the middle packet of pages out of the budget. They took the header pages off, they took the last pages off, they took the capital budget off of it. They gave me kind of the middle of the document. I filed another Oprah request that says I would like pages 1 through 48 and appendices so-and-so for the budget. I got the exact same packet of paperwork back. Asked a number of times, and finally I had to get Jason Kowski to intervene for me to get an actual copy of the state mandated form for the budget, and I got it, I believe, like a couple of days before the budget meeting. You can get documents, but sometimes it seems like there's a resistance to providing things that are clearly public information. We just ran into this with the Hilltop. The Environmental Commission wanted to get a copy of the actual plans for the Hilltop. They just wanted the set of documents, as was produced by planners that were working for the township, into which they have the statutory ability to review, and it was not really offered to them very openly. I think that we need to look at these things as being the people's work. The town is doing the people's work. It's on our behalf. All these documents, by default, should be open unless there's a reason why they need to be closed. If there's not a confidentiality reason for it, then they should be available for public inspection, and we should use the website regularly. We should put things on the website as an active practice, not put them on there only when someone asks for it. Things should be put on there by default. It's the best way to review and to watch what government is doing. Thank you.
Mr. Manley?
Thank you. I actually agree with what Mr. Williamson has said. Transparency, I believe, is the word itself is overused. I believe thoroughly in transparency, and I believe, personally, I certainly am. People have access to my email address, people have access to my phone number, and I communicate with anyone who wishes to communicate with me. Any question you want to ask, please give me a call, send me an email. I will be back to you within 24 hours, no question about it. As far as documents being available, I'm not involved in that. I know that our town manager does keep a close eye on that, but I believe that's his realm, and I believe he's possibly overzealous in trying to protect the council for whatever reason. But transparency is something that I think is overused right now, and anything you want to know, just ask me personally, please.
Mr. Diold?
I'd like to just say that on transparency, it's what people perceive. And I know that when I sit down and watch VTV, I see many times the billboards or the placards that come up telling us about all the different events in town. And I know there's time on there to put on all of these meetings. Like they're filming this meeting tonight to go on VTV. And I believe that all the budget meetings, the workshops, if we have the personnel to do it, they should be recorded and they should be played on VTV. Just as we are an automobile society, we're a technology society, and not everybody can come out to the meetings. If you can't come out to the meetings, you still have an opportunity to see what's going on in town and have yourself get an informed opinion, not just getting something that you heard by rumor or something like that. So I am much in favor of the transparency in letting them film all the different workshops and putting them on VTV. There's plenty of time to do it, and then people can watch when they have the time. Thank you.
Mrs. Schwartz?
Thank you. Some examples of information that was not forthcoming was, of course, as was mentioned before, plans for the fields to the Environmental Commission. That's the Environmental Commission's job, and thank you, Jay, for demanding that the plans be given to them. And I believe that, finally, that somebody is going to be meeting with them. Also, the ownership of the property across from the high school for locating the shed, the landmark shed. It shouldn't take that long to find out who owns that property. We have tax maps, and there's always the Hall of Records to find out. And so far at the last council meeting, I know somebody asked, and Mr. Martin said they don't know yet. I think $12 for a copy of the budget, and not the state-mandated budget, but just 56 copied pages, is a way of preventing people from getting information. Information needs to be more accessible to residents. There should be little or need for Oprah requests, as a town as small as ours. If a request is made, the information should be available in a timely manner. Information to the council that their request should be supplied expeditiously, and that's the information to the council hasn't been either. Along with regular council meetings, there should be conference meetings on alternate Mondays to open to the public, where the town manager and department heads can bring up issues that can be discussed by council members informally. And that way, in a round table, in that way, every council member will have the same information, this is a problem I saw, to form their decisions on important issues to our town. Thank you.
Mr. Stokowski?
Thank you. I have the philosophy, I'm here to represent you. Anyone that knows me over the years and has come to the meetings, it drives me crazy when we get bogged down in long discussions of residents asking for a simple piece of information. For example, a couple weeks ago when Mr. Szymanowski with the Environmental Commission asking for the Hilltop Plan, here you have a group of volunteers who take their time, and part of their position is to review these plans. I feel as though that it's just not good practice to give the people and the residents the information that they want. I think we've made strides with this budget, and I agree with Mr. Ryan. I was a proponent of putting it on a television, where I think this budget process worked out great. I don't know how many towns that you would go to a meeting and be able to question a department head directly about their budget. This year you were able to do that. We had department heads come and give a presentation, and followed up by residents able to ask meetings. I think we've come a long way, and I think anytime a resident or somebody is requesting a piece of information, unless it's a legal document or under something to do with negotiations that might hurt the town's position on something, I think they should have it. And I think over the years, I think any resident that has talked to me, I've always tried to come through to give them what they want. And I think transparency and things like that is a work in progress, and I think we can always do better. My one regret over the years was that how long it took to get the budget online. On the website. We've taken care of that, and I think we're moving in the right direction, but we could always do better.
Proceeding now to question number 4, which we'll start with Mr. Snitkowski. If you are elected, what ideas would you implement to help Verona compete with other vibrant downtowns like Montclair and Caldwell?
Well, I think one of our biggest assets, potential assets, that we have is we have numerous properties that are empty. We have the Pokel property, which sits next to the hilltop. We have the IHOP building, which can potentially be a nice centerpiece for the town. They are currently trying to purchase another piece of property. Montclair is, it's a unique town. I don't know if Verona, I know a lot of residents like to say, well, Montclair, they do this, Montclair, they do that. Well, you know what? I didn't move to Montclair. I live in Verona, and I love living here. And I like to see the progress that we've been doing over the last couple of years of like we had mentioned earlier, about really easing a lot of the restrictions on restaurants and new business to encourage people to open up, to come to town and feel as though that Verona is restaurant or business friendly. As far as I like this. As far as oh, that's the answer to my answer. I'm sorry.
Mr. Williamson?
Like Jay said, these empty buildings, we need to try to find a way to get new businesses in there. And I don't know how you do that. If somebody owns a property, there's only so much you can do to make him do something in his property. The restrictions are easy. I think once the economy comes back, we get these discussions going with the residents. What kind of businesses do we need? Do we want another hair salon, or do we want another restaurant? There's a lot of new stuff coming out from the West Coast. Elevation Burger, that type of. I don't know. I think the coffee houses are a big thing. We need to find out what the residents want, what people want to invest in. Right now, the economy just won't allow a lot of these businesses to take off. So I think if we're patient, I think the streetscapes are wonderful. They were finishing up the one section today. I think if we just continue on what the plans that are in place, let them finish up, and as the economy comes down, I think it'll take care of itself.
Mr. Ryan?
Yeah, thank you. I have to agree with what Jay said, basically, that I don't think we're ever going to be Montclair here. We just have a different vibe, a different feel. But we certainly, I think, can do things better. I think Bob Manley just mentioned, and I think it's a good idea, about maybe scheduling fairs not in the wintertime. The fair in the square is nice, but it's in December. We might want to do something in the fall or in the late summer, to attract more people into the town. I think I'd also like to turn the question back on the chamber. I mean, to sit down with the council and brainstorm ideas. From the sound of it, I would be in favor of even scheduling a council meeting where the agenda is just devoted to hearing from the chamber and the residents as to what they think that they can do to improve the business environment. It would be an open meeting where all the council people would be there, and anybody from the public can come and chip in. And it would just be a one-topic only meeting. I think if you got that kind of openness and of exchange of ideas, you might be able to come up with some good thoughts and some good plans. Thank you.
Mr. Roman.
Thank you. One of the things, when you really actually go into Montclair and look at it, they also have a vacancy problem in their downtowns. There's a lot of empty storefronts in Montclair. They are different towns. They do have a different vibe. There is a different business mix there. I will certainly acknowledge that. And I would like to see more of our existing vacancies filled. And again, we talked a little bit about development, where there are lots that make sense to develop to fill in the overall streetscape of the town. I would propose that we approach that cautiously and make sure that we make very smart planning decisions. We think about parking, we think about traffic, we think about the size and scale of buildings. Again, I think we've done a lot of effort with streetscape improvements and putting lighting so that hopefully businesses feel comfortable opening a little bit later. Mr. Diold mentioned parking meters. If you go to the town of Summit, all of their parking meters, the way they handle the parking meter issue is there's a button on the meter that actually gives you like 15 minutes, half an hour of time on the meter. That way they handle the enforcement issue, turn over their parking spaces a lot, and still collect some parking revenue. So something like that to ensure that people can stop in real quick. And then again, also working with the chamber as well. It should not necessarily just be the council, trying to direct the way the business works and the way that vacancies get filled in. This is a relationship between the two parties, and the Chamber of Commerce, this is a great role for them, is to work with the council to figure these things out. I think we do need things like cafes and restaurants, places where you want to come in and sit down and have a good time in downtown Verona. Thank you.
Now we'll hear from Mr. Manley.
Thank you. I grew up in Montclair. Nancy and I moved to Montclair when we first got married, and then we moved here, and we love it here. We're going to stay here. We are not Montclair, and I don't appreciate the comparison, actually, because Montclair has a college. We don't have a college. Montclair has 5 railroad stations. We don't have that. They became the bedroom community that they are because of the railroad stations that they have, that the track goes right through. We are different. We are unique. We have our own demographic, and we have our own warmth and charm here. I believe that as council liaison, as council liaison to the Chamber, I've tried to cultivate a reconnect with the Chamber. And I think we made good strides. We made good strides, I believe, around the holidays when we designated parking lot 2 as free parking so that anybody who was holiday shopping could extend their time and park for free, alleviating the problem of putting bags over all the meters, so you had people who worked there and commuters taking up those spaces for the entire day, which precluded anybody else from parking there. We have made great strides with the streetscape, but the fact is that those empty properties, as Mr. Williamson said, we don't own those. And if the owners are dragging their heels, or the developers are not wanting to come in because the economy is bad, we have very little control of that. We only can do what we can do as far as making it as attractive a community as we possibly can, and I believe we're on the right path. Thank you.
Mr. Diold.
I'm concerned about the open properties in Verona that don't have businesses in them right now, and I believe very firmly that we ought to invite the owners of those properties in to sit down with the members of the Chamber. Let them tell you what their problems are so we get the problems out on the table. Is it that there's not enough parking? Is it that there are certain restrictions? You have to fit in with the zoning board, whatever the codes are for that particular area. But you have to communicate. You have to sit down and work together. I would love to see all of those properties have storefronts in them. And like I said, once you can entice businesses to come in, that will then bring more business. Once you get started, get the ball rolling in that direction, you can really make a difference. One thing I am a little bit concerned about, when we were talking about tax dollars, I had heard a comment, and I unfortunately didn't mark it down, but they were talking about raising the taxes on the commercial buildings. And if that happens, that could be something that the prospective store owners are concerned about, because if the landowner has it, he's got to pay more taxes, he has to charge more for the property, and it makes it very difficult for business to get started. I think we need to get the property owners in with the Chamber, find out what the problems are, and sit down and work them out together. Thank you.
And Ms. Schwartz?
Thank you. We need to brand and market Verona. We need to take advantage of Verona Park. We need to hold events in the north part of the park and attract people to our business district that way. I agree that Fair in the Square is great, but an Oktoberfest would be even greater. And I would like to bring families into the town and to work with the Chamber of Commerce as a partner for brainstorming and maybe to reinstate what used to be known as the Commercial Revitalization Committee. That was people that were trying to get more businesses into town. Unfortunately, we might think that a cafe is great, we might think that certain stores are great, but we have no control over what kind of business comes in, or maybe in planning and zoning. But if a salon wants to come in and they're doing everything according to zoning, we cannot prevent them from coming in, or a nail place, or whatever, you know, we have a plethora of. I'd like to see, as far as attracting businesses, the more people that are on the streets, the more businesses you're going to attract. If I'm a potential developer, if I drive through the town and I see nobody out, I'm not going to want to come into that town. So we need to get more people out on Bloomfield Avenue, shopping Verona, shopping locally. Thank you.
For the final question, we'll start with Mr. Manley. A large percentage of any municipal budget consists of employee salaries and benefits. When it's time to renegotiate contracts for Verona's public employees, where do you stand on yearly salary increases and contributions toward health care benefits?
Well, let me start off by saying that property tax This has been noted many times, and it bears repeating because it's important. The municipality is responsible for collecting 100% of your property tax. And of that 100%, that 100 cents on the dollar, 55 cents goes right to the Board of Education, no questions asked. 20 to 22 cents on the dollar goes right to the county, no questions asked. And we are left with between 23 and 25 cents on the dollar to run your town, to pay the salaries. That's assuming that we've collected all 100% of the tax, when we're only averaging about 98.5% now. We are nearing the end of our 3-year contract, and as far as I'm concerned, and I believe I've spoken to my fellow councilmen, we're going to ask Joe Martin to go in and be as fair as possible, but hold the line. I believe that the town employees, the police department, and all of the contracted town employees, they understand the situation. They know what the economy's like. They're human beings, and they live in this town as well. They pay the taxes in this town as well. And I'm confident that they're going to be responsible and share and give back. I certainly would not approve anything more than possibly a 1.5% increase, and I know that they're going to be paying back into their health care and pension. So we can end up with a wash at least, or possibly even better than that. They are human beings and they live here, and I'm confident that they're going to step up and do what's right. Thank you.
Mr. Diold?
I think that we have to be realistic, especially in the terms of benefits. And I realize that the town employees will soon be, when come the end of the year, will be paying into some money towards their health benefits. As mentioned before, health benefits are rising at a rate that we are having a very difficult time controlling. I think as part of negotiations, we have to go in and we have to change the structure of the way things are done. It has to be like a percentage of your salary that you are paying, and that can be negotiated. Unfortunately, I don't know that much about the town's negotiations with its employees, because all of those things are done in private. But I would encourage those who work with the negotiations from the town side to go in and to be very honest and lay it out. This is what we're faced with. If we do this, it's going to cost this much. We're going to have to raise the taxes this much. Or they could take another approach. They could say, we could take where you are right now and we could stand still for 1 year. Ask me. I'm retired, Social Security. For the last 5 years, 2 of those years, you can tell you what the increase was. Close your eyes. What do you see? Nothing. That's what we got. We could ask them to stand still for a year. They would still make it. They still have good jobs. Or the other alternative would be, and I would hate to see this, and that is if you insist on large increases in order to do this, you might have to reduce staff. I don't want to see that. Thank you.
Ms. Schwartz?
Thank you. I am a public employee. This hits home to me a little bit more than maybe anybody else here, except for you, Bob. But I pay into my health benefits, and I went quite a few years without a salary increase, besides my steps. I mean, public employees get salary increases automatically with the civil service step program. I think what we need to direct the town manager to do is go into bargaining sessions with a strong hand and then come to a compromise. I know that the employees of this town are very dedicated. I know that they understand that people, that their neighbors and the other residents of this town are hurting financially, and I'm quite sure that they'll be reasonable in bargaining for their next contract. As far as percentages, amounts, that I'll leave to the people that are sitting at the bargaining table. What the council should do is get a number which they won't go beyond as the be-all, end-all, and then have Mr. Martin go in and work with the union representatives. Thank you.
Ms. Nursakowski?
Thank you. I work in the private sector. I pay my own health care. The entire cost. I pay for my own 401k. I don't have a pension. I don't have a retirement fund except for what I put away, and I know it's hard. I mean, it's a tremendous amount of people in Verona under the same situation. One of the biggest challenges that we face as a municipality and going into contract negotiations is the rising costs of health care. Across the board, across the country, the county, the municipality. The escalating costs are huge, and the implications, we haven't yet seen the implications of the Affordable Care Act, commonly also known as Obamacare, which we certainly have a lot of concern about and how that's going to affect municipalities down the road. The one good thing a couple of years ago was when Governor Christie came out with a 2% cap on the to level out the playing fields with contracts. You know, before that, it's easy to be critical, but you know, years ago, if the public employees were asking for 6% and we wanted to give 2%, well, we were forced to go to arbitration. Arbitration, when I first got into council, along with Councilwoman Schwartz, and back in 2001, we were caught up in the middle of one. And the town lost. We had to go back and pay retro 3 years of salaries and benefits. So we need to stay out of that. And under Governor Christie's 2% cap, it has helped tremendously. So it's a new playing field of renegotiations. It's something we didn't have years ago. So I expect that this next contract will be more in line with the present day economics.
Mr. Williamson?
Call you again. Employee benefits and wages is always one of the things that make elections tricky. As a municipality, we want to keep costs as low as we can. We also want to keep a happy workforce. We want to have a qualified workforce. Just by saying no, 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 you're going to lose qualified employees. The employees of this town, I believe, realize where we're all at. Most of the guidelines are set on the state and federal level. We can't, much like the teachers' pensions, you can't touch them. Same way at the state level, the employees, all their pensions are set there. There's a guidelines we work in. Hopefully, the manager will come back with something that everybody can live with, and we can continue to have Verona prosper.
Mr. Ryan?
Thank you. As most people know who've followed my statements, this has been one of my themes over the last 2 years, and that is basically we have to get some of our salary costs and our health benefit costs going forward under control. I think one of the best ways we can do this is start connecting the dots with all the budget issues. I want to be able to tell Mr. Martin that he can go into a negotiation. Then the best way we can do this with a strong is by looking at all the areas of the budget that we can control and showing the unions that we're serious about cutting costs. I almost feel like we're sort of in Wonderland here. We're talking about, we're throwing up our hands and saying, well, we can't control this, we can't control that. Yet we still want to go, for example, and bond $5 million to build a recreation complex, use some of the money that possibly could be used to offset some of these costs, which everybody here has acknowledged are going to be going forward. If I'm sitting, on a negotiating committee, my first question to the manager is, well, if the town is so hard up for money, why is it going out and bonding for $5, $6, $7 million and incurring additional debt costs? I don't want him to go into the negotiations with that kind of an albatross on his back. I want the negotiations to be serious. I want the town employees to realize that we value them, but that the time has come that we need a contract that's going to be fair to all the citizens in the town. The town employees have done very well in this bad recession, and I think the rest of the town needs a break at this point. Thank you.
Mr. Roman?
Thank you. One of the things I think causes this issue is the massive disconnect between public employee compensation and what the typical trend is in the private sector, because people in the private sector have had a very, very rough time lately. And what's happening is that as the cost of compensating public employees is going up, which is a very, very large driver of our property taxes, people are seeing their incomes at best stay stagnant, if not go down. Or, there's a lot of layoffs in the private sector. And that's what's making this even worse, out of balance every year. So I think we need to look at how we negotiate contracts in the context of the greater economy as a whole. We can't have two completely separate groups of people in the society that one gets one set of things and everybody else, has to find a way to scratch every year to pay an increased cost. I'm very, very concerned about that. The other thing that I would look at is the overall cost of compensating an employee. We talk just about salaries here, but there's also the very, very large benefit and pension costs. We have high overtime costs in this town. We still have longevity pay for a lot of employees. So it's more than just the base rate and the salary that stacks up in there. We need to look at the overall cost of compensating an employee and look at it as one large bucket of money as to what we can afford to pay out. And yes, we do believe that we value the contributions of our employees. They are dedicated. They do work hard, but we need to look at where this is taking our budget. It's what's really driving the increases in our budget, and I feel that disconnect is the biggest concern. In times that are really, really good, I think that the public sector should benefit as well. I have absolutely nothing against that. But I do feel that when we're in times like we've had recently, we need to kind of even it out between the two groups.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's now time for our closing statements, and we'd like to begin with Ms. Schwartz.
Thank you. There's a new dynamic on the Town Council, and I want to be part of the discussion and the debate, part of a strong and open council. I want to focus more attention to the business district, brand and market Verona, and take advantage of Verona Park. I want to bring in more business revenue as one part of a strategy to lessen the tax burden on residents. I've demonstrated that I'm well aware of the issue, as I was the first mayor of Verona in recent history to insist on no increase in the municipal budget. Since then, the council has followed my lead and requested no increase for 3 years in a row, and has so far managed to achieve that for the past 2. People who know me will tell you I'm independent, I'm pragmatic, hands-on, and a good listener. If elected, I will continue to serve the residents of Verona with integrity, accountability, and common sense. Remember to vote Tina Schwartz, line 7A. I feel like I'm on American Idol. When you get into the voting booth, look down the list on the ballot, and keep in mind that most often the best things are saved for last. Thank you.
Mr. Sinitkowski.
I would like to thank my family for being here tonight and all the support you've given me, my campaign manager, Fred Good, Treasurer Don Flood, and all the support this community has given me over the years. When you pull the lever, I respectfully ask for your vote because you see what I have accomplished over the years. You understand and see that the council manages the tax levy and not the tax rate. And for the past 3 years, despite rising costs, 5 storms, 0 state aid, a reduction in ratables, and a bad economy, that our municipal tax levy, the amount of money raised by taxation for the municipal portion of your tax bill, has been flat for 3 straight years. You see this done through a reduction in employee headcount and benefiting from technology. And that for 12 years, your water and sewer rates have remained unchanged, and that we actually use it to create revenue by selling it to other towns. You see that I am someone that has lived up to their campaign promises of creating a better-looking downtown that has sparked a new interest in the central business district with buildings such as the IHOP. You see shared services with surrounding towns in the county, and most of all the Board of Education, to save tax dollars, taking a potentially poor situation like the hilltopping and making it a huge asset in terms of close to $1 million in revenue and increased recreational opportunities. You see someone that speaks up with meetings and tries to work with others to get things done, and someone that just doesn't talk about bringing in new revenue, but someone that has actually done it with his own ideas. Some of my opponents will try to paint a different picture. That's what they do. It's they want to create. It's election time. They want to create doubt in your mind. But I encourage you to look at the facts before you vote. And if you do, you will see that I have earned your vote. 12 years ago, I said my only interest is to serve this community, and that is still my goal. I respectfully ask for your vote on May 14th. Thank you. And also, you can visit my website at jsnikowski.nationbuilder.com. Thank you.
Mr. Williamson.
You have heard many ideas here tonight. Everyone has their vision for the future of Verona. You must decide which vision best fits yours. Municipalities throughout New Jersey are under tremendous financial stress, and Verona is no different. I have the ability to listen and think outside of the box, to solve problems that traditional solutions can no longer solve. My enthusiasm and fresh perspective will bring to light new ideas for shared services and ways of reducing operational costs to help hold the line on taxes. I will be able to make the tough decisions when it comes down to the needs of the many outweighing the needs of the few or the one. You can email me your ideas or questions at Williamson for Council, that's Williamson, the number 4 Council, at gmail.com, or go to my Facebook page, Rich Williamson for Verona Town Council. 2 years ago, while playing basketball at HBW school, I went down with cardiac arrest. The town of Verona was there for me. It's time for me to be there for the town of Verona. Resourceful, tireless, practical. Vote line 2A on May 14th. Let me get to work for you, Verona. Thank you.
Mr. Ryan.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the Chamber and the Times for sponsoring this event, and I'd like to thank my fellow candidates here for participating. My family and I moved to Verona over 27 years ago because my wife and I were attracted by the highly rated schools, reasonable property taxes, and commutation to our jobs in New York. We've never regretted our decision. What impressed us the most then and now is the great sense of community, civic pride, and the willingness of people to help each other. The most recent examples of this being our reactions to the Halloween snowstorm and Sandy. I am proud to have served as a co-president of the Music Parents Association, been a coach in the Verona baseball and recreational soccer programs, and a member of the Spotlight Players Parent Association. I've always enjoyed working with dedicated parents, students, and teachers. I currently serve as a liaison to the Environmental and Shade Tree Commissions, where I have had the opportunity to interact with dedicated volunteers, and I was a strong supporter of the pesticide-free treatment of our playing fields. Although I'm currently retired, I've worked for 32 years for the Social Security Administration. I supervised the staff that developed budgets and allocated funds for 13 years. In that time, I developed analytical, budgeting, and communication skills that I can directly apply to my council responsibilities. I am also a U.S. Army veteran and a former social studies teacher. If re-elected, I will continue my efforts to control spending and advocate for more transparency and open government. I'd also like to see greater cooperation between the council and the Board of Ed in the area of maintaining field and recreational facilities used by everyone. We have a lot of fields out there already, and I think if we work with the Board of Ed, we might be able to upgrade them and maybe save ourselves a little money going forward. And finally, I want to determine if there's anything the council can do to improve the utilization of the vacant commercial space by working with the Chamber and other business partners. I would appreciate your support by voting for me on May 14th on line 3A. Thank you very much.
Mr. Roman.
Thank you. Tonight we've heard several different points of view on how to move forward in Verona. Everyone here is present tonight because they care about the town and because they feel they have a vision for how to move forward. We're in a critical place this year, perhaps more so than in a long time. Our union contracts are both expiring this year. We're looking at changes to our health care costs coming up. We're looking at major capital projects, how to direct our pilot dollars. And at the same time, all of our infrastructure, our buildings, our streets, and our water and sewer systems are aging, and they're going to need continuing investment. I'm looking to bring more to the table than just a vote. If I'm elected, I will be an active participant in changing our direction and managing our costs. I'll use my experience with capital investment and technology management to improve our infrastructure and to make us more efficient every day. And above all, I'm going to strive to be as fair as possible to the citizens of Verona. This is our town. We want to run it in our best interests. This means spending money where it's smart and trying to save where we can. I'm always going to listen to everyone's input, and I will use that to make the right choices for the community. I appreciate everyone being here tonight or watching this on VTV, and I encourage you to visit my website at www.alexroman.net. If you'd like to get in touch with me for any reason, there's a contact me link on there, and I will return your email as soon as I can. And I thank you for being here again tonight. I ask for your vote. I ask for your support.
Mr. Manley.
Thank you, Alex. I'd like to thank Tina for pointing out the fact that we have gone 3 years in a row with a flat levy, and I'm committed, I've said it publicly, to doing that again in 2013. I've learned a great deal over these past 4 years as a council member, and I've tried to put that knowledge to use in solving the problems that we faced in the past and hopefully the challenges that we'll come across in the future. 4 years ago, I made 2 promises. I promised that I would listen to every resident, to every thought, every concern, every suggestion, every idea, and I would decide based on information, all the information that I could possibly gather from as many sources from which I could gather it. I believe I've fulfilled those 2 promises, and with your support, I hope to continue. I am absolutely committed to the fiscally responsible management of this town's financial future, and I will continue to strive to keep our property taxes as low as conceivably possible, but not to sacrifice the quality of life that people live here for or the delivery of essential services that they've come to rely upon. Therefore, I respectfully ask for your support on May 14th and vote Bob Manley for Verona Town Council. And not to be outdone, you can go to my website as well, bobmanleyverona.com. Thank you very much.
And Mr. Diold.
Okay, so I'll start right off. My tagline is "Doc for the Taxpayer," and if you go to that, you can find me on the Facebook page. I would like to say that there are wants and there are needs. We all have lots of things we would want to have, but we can't always have them all. And we have to take a look, in my opinion, at what we really need. And I know, after attending meetings for the last 5 years, the council meetings, 4 to 5 years, I also go to all Board of Ed meetings, I know that we can trim our budget. We can cut expenses, and I know that we can achieve a flat tax rate. Now, a tax rate is different than the tax levy, and I know they've maintained the levy, but your taxes have still gone up. I will say this, if you want change, you want to see something done about the rising taxes in this town that we have been confronted with in the last 5 years, then you need to look at line 6A and vote for me. If you want more of the same, look in the past and see who has voted for these budgets that have raised your taxes to these extremes of some 31% and over 10 years, 71%. I think it's time to get some new ideas on the council, and that's why I'm running, and I would like your support. Thank you very much.
And that concludes our evening. We would like to thank a couple of people before you leave. We'd like to thank the Township of Verona, and particularly our Township Manager, Joe Martin, and Township Clerk Sue Neal for their assistance in securing the community center for this event. We'd also like to thank the candidates for their service in stepping forward to run for office and participating in our forum. Thank you very much to the members of the community for being present tonight, and for those who will be watching on VTV. And finally, thank you to the Verona Recreation Department for providing technical support, as well as the camera crew for tonight's taping. Don't forget to vote on May 14th, and have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.